Hello and welcome back to Unpopular People.
We believe that listening and learning from each other is key for personal development and success.
Today in our interview, Nick from Liverpool.
Nick is a general manager of the Burleigh Heads Surf Club at the Gold Coast. You can find the show notes for this episode on our website www.unpopularpeople.com.
You can also find our brand new shop on our website with clothes designed by Elisa.
If you want to stay updated, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. You can also find this on our website www.unpopularpeople.com.
And now enjoy this inspiring interview with Nick.
Yeah, hello Nick. Thank you very much for your time today. Great to have you in our show today. So we know a little bit about you, but our guests don't. So the first question we have for you is, where were you born and how did you grow up?
Well, thank you, and thanks for allowing me to speak today. I was born in Liverpool in England. Stayed there till I was around 18. Travelled a little bit around America, and then finally I had a girlfriend at them days, and we both travelled to Australia together, where it didn't work out unfortunately when we got here, so we went our separate ways. But I went travelling a bit and ended up meeting my lovely wife now, Natasha, who's an Australian, and we have 4 children obviously, and I've been here now I think about 27, 28 years. Yeah, it's very exciting. I think it was a good move.
So why did you decide to leave Liverpool at the first place? Why did you go to America? Why did you do this?
I think I always wanted to explore the world, and see. I didn't want to be stuck in Liverpool. I always had an adventurous side to me. When I went to America, it was working on the summer camps with the kids, and they all send the kids to the summer camps for 3 or 4 months, and then normally you have the opportunity then to go traveling afterwards. So we travel around the East Coast and New Orleans, and you meet great people. I think the first year I was there, we traveled with a couple of Israeli guys down. I bailed in New Orleans. They were going to California. So I always had that, I think, a thought of living somewhere other than Liverpool. Although I love it, my family is still there. I just I guess I wanted to see the world and see what it had to offer.
So let's go a little bit back to your childhood. How was it like? How did you grow up? Do you have siblings? How was your time back then?
I guess when you look back on it, I felt like it was a very normal childhood compared to the estate where we live, which was quite a rough council area in Liverpool. But it's only when you start reminiscing and talking to people you realise it actually was quite unique in a way. We all lived, it was 6 children, my mum and dad. I shared a room with my 3 brothers, which is the way everyone lived in them days. And it was fun, growing up on them council estates. It can be a bit rough, but there's so many children around that when you look back, there was never a dull moment. Playing football, hide and seek. It was quite a simple time. You didn't need much technology. You'd go and wander the streets for hours, or the fields picking raspberries and blackberries. It was just, although you didn't have many possessions, there was some kind of happiness and freedom about it. Money, no one seemed to have money, but it didn't matter because everyone was in exactly the same boat, and you'd go and you'd visit an auntie if you needed a biscuit or a drink of water, and it was, makes me feel old when I reminisce like that, but it was quite nice. It was, there was some rough times, but it was overall, I think I look back and think I'm happy I grew up that way.
So what did your parents do, and what did they say when you left Liverpool behind?
Believe it or not, my dad was actually a window cleaner, so he was like, he knew everybody and everybody knew him. I had a huge family. I think my dad had, 3 sisters and 4 brothers, and my mum had 8 sisters, so my mum, I think she said they grew up in a 2-bedroomed house with 9 daughters, which is quite unbelievable to think, but that was the way people lived. So I think they always felt like I was going to be a bit more of an adventurer than the rest of the family, but they was very sad to see me leave Liverpool, but the opportunities were very small, really. I think you don't, where we are now on the Gold Coast, it's as much as my family are there and it's a beautiful to go home, you do feel very fortunate to have this opportunity. So I do miss them, and as you get older you start wondering whether you've made the right decisions, because your brothers and sisters are getting older too, but I think it's the right decision, you know what I mean, at the moment.
And you just said we are here at the Gold Coast, that's right. We know you are here in the surf club, you are the manager. How did you come to this job? And from arriving in Australia to today, what happened all the years between?
My life's been an adventure, right from the word go. I look back and I've had such an experience, and it was quite interesting because I think growing up in Liverpool, you don't always do things legally, not illegally, but how to push the boundaries and how to take advantage of opportunities. And so I actually ended up in Australia because I had a girlfriend. We were living in a place in Jersey in the Channel Islands. We actually had kind of split up, but we owned a car together. And she phoned me one day, I still had the car, and she said, look, I want you to sell the car because I want half the money. And I said, why? And she said, oh, I'm going to Australia. So I thought, well, that might be a good opportunity to come over. So we kind of got back together, came to Australia. But I didn't have a visa to be here, because a friend of mine had told me that you didn't need a visa to just turn up in Australia. This is 30 years ago. You could get jobs anywhere. It was never a problem. You didn't find a tax file number, which was not really true. I found when I got here, you actually did need all them things. So I kind of knew a guy. I turned up at Manly in in Sydney way, and a guy who I knew from Jersey was just leaving the week later. And his name was Ian Lord, and he actually said to me, why don't you use my name and tax file number and you can get a job? So the first job I got was in a place in Manly, but I used this guy's name and number. So I was working in a big Harbour Diggers, a big establishment, and everyone was calling me Ian for like 3 months, which was really, really difficult. But so I just kept going for a while, and then in the end, I think the next job, I thought, I can't keep this up. It's just people were thinking I was like ignoring them all the time when they were saying Ian, and I wasn't answering them. So I just ended up staying in Australia, moving around, moved up to the Gold Coast, worked in various jobs, and when I got to the Gold Coast, I met my now wife. I was working in the casino under my real name this time, so I could be called Nick, so it was easier. And eventually the immigration did catch up with me, and I actually got deported when I was first here. So it wasn't bad. I was living with some Irish fellas in a place in Surfers, and they actually immigration raided the place. I escaped like a criminal. I'd done a runner, and I ran to I was running with the immigration guys behind me, and I was heading towards my now wife's place. So I kind of hid out in her place for about a week, and then eventually I turned myself in, and it wasn't too bad because I still actually had a visa to be in the country. I just didn't have a work permit. So they did tell me I had to go home, but it wasn't. Even though I was deported, they let me have a week to say goodbye to everyone, and I booked the flight, and they met me at the airport, and so exciting. That was only one part there.
Yeah. So you got to the airport, and then you flew back, and what made you like? I mean, your wife obviously made you come back, but what happened?
Well, so it was interesting because I think at the time I was I'd only just met my wife. We were like girlfriend and boyfriend, you know what I mean? And we got to the airport, and the immigration were there because they had my passport, so they were handing it back to me to make sure I got on the flight and everything. So Tash said to me, "Oh, look, I'm going to come over to the UK, to Jersey, to see her." And I actually didn't think I'd ever see her again. I don't know why. I just thought that's something what people say when they, you know, in that situation, I'll see you. And then I remember I got back to Jersey, got my old job back and all that, and I think she phoned me and said I've booked a flight to come. And I remember thinking, I think I said to one of my friends, I said, "There's some Australian girl coming over." I said, "I don't even know her that well, but she's coming over to see me." And I look back now and, like, you know, I think I actually, and I think when I talk to Tash now, obviously she was looking for an adventure as well. So she said, "I didn't really know you either, but she just wanted an excuse to go traveling." So fortunately, you know, we stuck together and done the travel thing and that.
Yeah, we love, I would say. Amazing. How did you come back to Australia then, and when?
So my now wife, she got a 2-year visa, you know, for work permit for the UK and that. So we basically, as I was living in the Channel Islands in Jersey, and we worked there for a year, saved up some money, and then we kind of went back to Liverpool, went to Greece, went around Europe, went back to Jersey, and she got pregnant. So we kind of had to make a decision: do we live in Jersey or the UK, or do I apply for residency, you know, for Australia? And you know, even though it is beautiful here, it was also Jersey, the Channel Islands, was a beautiful place as well. So it wasn't sure where we were going to live, but we decided I may as well apply to come in for residency. And I wasn't sure because of the deportation. I thought, how is that going to work? Are they going to let me back in? But I think because they had records of me and Tash being together before, that, you know, so basically I applied for residency, and it was quite easy in them days. You know, we went through a de facto relationship and then we just came back to Australia and started a new adventure from then, you know, together. Yeah.
And what was your profession, or what did you do back then when you first, you said you worked in a factory or something in Sydney, and what did you then do when you come back to Australia with your wife or now wife?
Well, I think the opportunities here, I think if you work hard, are huge, you know, and I think if you've got a bit of a personality and you can you can talk to people and that. So I basically I was always in the hospitality industry, like, so I got back into hospitality. I think I got a job in a big golf course initially, a big brand new golf course which had just opened on the Gold Coast, and then I got an opportunity to manage a golf course, which was was really exciting, you know, because I was from Liverpool, from a council estate, you know, and suddenly I was managing a huge golf course on the Gold Coast, and I was like, and I think I kind of always doubted if I was capable of doing it, you know. So the only way I could ever feel like I had to justify my position was by working so many hours. So I would always just, because I'm quite unorganized at times, so I'd make up for my unorganization by being there most of the time. So but I always felt, I think even now I always feel very fortunate to have these jobs, you know, because I think, but I'm starting, as I get older now, I'm starting to feel like, hey, I deserve it, you know, I do deserve, I'm good at what I do. But I think I've always, coming up through that council estate, working class, you always think you're not really good enough, and it's only been the last few years you think, no, I actually do know what I'm doing. I've managed places, I've had great results, I've made plenty of money, and I'm starting to maybe believe in myself and getting a bit more comfortable with who I am a bit, you know. So yeah,
very great story. And do you have any recommendations? You said you learned to be more confident, for people that are not confident. How can they become more confident?
Look, I think if you always, you know, as I've got older, I think if you're a good person, you know, and you do the right thing, and you've got a good heart. I know it sounds, I mean, you know, for me, saying these things sounds, it's something when in my teenage years, I never thought I'd be sitting here saying things like this. But I think, you know, even when I hire people now, you know, we probably have 70 staff in this place and that. And I really always have this philosophy where I think, you know, you can teach people to do a job, but you can't teach someone to be a good person. I think that's something you are, or you're not a good person. And I think, you know, unfortunately, sometimes life can overlook good people too, you know, because people, you know, false people can put themselves forward and they can get plenty of rewards. But I think just by being kind-natured, and I think not worrying what other people think. I think as long as you're true to yourself and believe in what you're doing is the right thing. I think the younger generation now, I've got, you know, 4 children, and I really worry that they're so influenced by what other people think of them. And it's a worrying time for, I think, the younger generation, because it's lovely when you see a young, confident person who's a little bit unique and they don't follow the crowd just to fit in. But at the same token, we all know when you're teenagers, it's so hard not to fit in. You know, it's so easy just to be part of the crowd. And, you know, if you're in that, you know, being, I guess, isolated. But I think as you get older, it's easy when you're older to say what you do, but when you're young, it's a completely different ball game. You know, you don't think, your mind doesn't think. You don't want to stand out in the crowd. You don't want to be unique. Sometimes you want to just be cool and one of the gang. So, but I think from my point of view, I look for people who just have a good heart and treat people with dignity and respect, really. Yeah.
So I think not standing out from the crowd must be a bit hard for your 4 kids, because they have like very interesting names, as we once heard. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the names of your kids, if you like, and why you chose them.
Well, my first son, he was born on John Lennon's birthday. So I'm from Liverpool, and, you know, so the Beatles were obviously a huge influence. So my mum, and my wife's a bit of a hippie, you know, she's a bit unique, and I think she'd like to spend her life just traveling around in a caravan, living in a commune. I think that's, you know, she's a beautiful person. But so my mum kind of thought, like, you've got to call him John, and I thought that ain't gonna work with Tash, you know, she's not gonna go. So we come up with the name Kiazee, Kiazee, and then I was a big Bob Dylan fan. I love my music. I still do. I go to sleep at night listening to music, and because of the John Lennon's birthday, we got Lennon, so we called him Kiazee Dylan Lennon Corby Owens, which is Tasha's surname and my surname, because we weren't married at the time when we had our first son, so we just called him Corby Owens. And then my second boy came along, which again was unique, but we called him Zebedee, which was, my oldest brother had a nickname called Zeb, and we just kind of went on it. And so Zebedee Denham, who was an actor, I think Tash liked some old actor called Denham Elliott, and Brose was Natasha's grandfather, so Zebedee Denham Brose Owens for the surname, which is again weird. And then Lulu, my only daughter, her name, I don't know where we came up, but we called her Lulu Texas Queenie Bell. And there is a story somewhere. I think Tash had a doll or something. So and then the youngest guy, I don't think you guys have met, maybe not yet. So yeah, so he there's a famous poet in Australia called Banjo Patterson who wrote, you know, so we called him Banjo Gulliver Fox Owens. So, and that one actually surprised the people back home more than anything, because in Australia the name Banjo is kind of, you hear it now and then because this famous poet, and, you know, but obviously when I told my mum, she's just thinking it's the instrument, the banjo. So, you know, she thought I'd name my son after like calling him guitar or saxophone. But you know, but there's a famous poet. He wrote a poem called "The Man from Snowy River," which is a really famous Aussie. So as much as when we go back to England or the UK, they see banjo, they go, "Why?" But in Australia, it's not quite as. But I'll say, with the funny thing, I was down in the bar down, or the kiosk downstairs the other week, and I was talking about the kids' names, and I got talking about my pets, and I got a dog called Harry and a cat called Emily, and it was so weird. And the person said to me, "Geez," they said, "you've got all these strange names for your kids, and you've got a dog, and you've got really normal names for the pets." You know what I mean? And I thought, you know, but there's a saying when they say you can take the Mickey, which means make fun. You know, like, so I think I said you can take the Mickey out of your kids, but you can't do that to your animals. You can't do that. Yeah. So we got Harry and Emily for a dog and a cat, which is really is strange, actually. Yeah.
That builds some confidence also with the kids, I guess. Those names.
Yeah, true. So you said your passion is music. What kind of music do you listen to?
I still love Bob Dylan, believe it or not, you know, and the Beatles. I tend to be, you know, I do like some modern music, but I do tend to be a bit old-fashioned with all this Crosby, Stills and Nash, and, you know, we do a lot of folk festivals in Australia. So Tash, the Woodford Folk Festival, which is not on, unfortunately, this year because we've been to it. My wife goes, like, you know, for the whole trip, but because it's so busy, it goes for about 8 days. It's Christmas time, so I end up just going up and down, and I'm working here because it's crazy at the surf club that time of year. But it's just the music festivals. We try and follow a lot of the folk music festivals, and there's some great in Australia. You know, you camp, the weather's amazing. You can camp. There's Bellingen, there's all kinds of, Mullumbimby has a great festival, you know, there's some fantastic festivals. So yeah, I play a little bit of guitar, a bit of singing. I'd like to play the guitar more, you know, but I think it's interesting. Before I ended up getting into management, I was really practicing, but I think the job and the children, it really put my guitar, you know, I'm kind of still at the same level I was 27 years ago, you know, because I pick it up and my fingers are killing me because I haven't played for a few months and that. So but yeah, I love my bit of folk music, yeah. And a bit of chanting, a bit of kirtan with the meditation. I love all that too, yeah.
Nice, yeah, thank you very much. And we also heard, like, many times now, the surf club, and you mentioned it before that you go down to the kiosk to the surf club. And so how did you end up here? Like, what happened from the golf club to the surf club in Burleigh Heads?
Do you know what? I think we were talking earlier about it. I was working at a good golf course, Emerald Lakes, just down the road here, and it was a big job, you know. It was a hard job, but they were a huge development company, and they were opening a huge development and opening a lot of restaurants. And I got an opportunity that if I was to open a lot of the restaurants on the new development for them and get them up and running, and get an opportunity to take one of the restaurants for myself as a lease. And I always wanted to own my own business, and it was interesting because I took over the first restaurant called Cafe Belago, and it was going crazy, busy. I had a lot of people on the estate who I knew, so I was getting a lot of support, but I was working hard because I was thinking it was my own business, and the kids were still fairly young, and I was probably doing 70, 80 hours a week trying to build this business up for myself, and I'm thinking this is going to be mine one day, and I'm going to be, and you know, it was just one day. They had fantastic bathrooms. We had these really posh bathrooms in this place, and a young girl came out to me and said, "Nick, someone's threw up in the bathroom." And I went, "Which one?" She said, "Every cubicle." So someone had thrown up in all the cubicle, and I had a mop bucket, and I'm mopping up this, you know, this, and I just suddenly dawned on me. I thought, what am I doing? I thought, my children are little. If I take my own business, I'm going to be working 90 hours a week. I'm going to be doing this every night. Rather than pay a cleaner, I'd probably do it myself to save money. And I actually just looked at the newspaper. I'd been with this company about 14 years. I looked in the newspaper, and a little ad in the paper just said the Burleigh Surf Club is looking for a general manager. And I just thought, you know what, it might be time for a change. And when I came, I think Burleigh Heads, where we are, I just looked at the position and the location, and I knew we had plans to develop the surf club. It wasn't quite as, even though we're still developing now, but I thought to myself, I could just see huge potential here. I just thought Burleigh, it seemed like one of the best spots in the world. I've travelled quite a bit, and even now sometimes I grab a coffee, sit on the balcony, I take a picture and send it back to Liverpool, put it on Facebook, because it really is. It could be as good as it gets really here. So and with the development, I just thought to myself, if you're going to be in management, you want to have a job which works. You can. So and then obviously I employed all my children. It was a good opportunity to give all them a job too. So, and it was easy going. It was a bit more laid back. I liked the fact that it wasn't quite as strict. The golf course was a little bit more, bit of fine dining, and it was very much relaxed. Yeah. So and that was 12 and a half years ago now. Long time. Yeah. So
living in a club here, or not living in the club, but having 4 children and managing the club and doing all those things, and also being surrounded by let's say a drinking culture and people partying and stuff. How do you stay fit and healthy and active? How do you build up your day?
Look, I'm fortunate. I cycle to work most days, and my garden, I live on. I've got an acre. About 10 minutes away, and it's the craziest hill where I've got this garden. You'll have to come round. We'd have to come round one day and see my garden. It's quite, but I'm on this hill, and it really, I'm obsessed with garden. It's become. I always loved it, even in the small houses we had, because you could grow so many things which you couldn't grow in England. So you get rock melons and watermelons and mangoes and all these tropical things, and I've got peaches and nectarines. So I've got an acre, but it's on a hill. So every spare moment I'm actually digging. I'm trying to go pure organic. I realize now the soil, if you don't need to fertilizers or anything, because if your soil's right, that the organisms which come in it will add all that fertilizer. So the worms, the nematodes, once your soil is healthy, it self-fertilizes, and it's your plants. The results you see are just phenomenal, and it's almost to an extent where I read, I think about gardening. I wake up in the morning thinking about growing things, and I have to be careful because I've got this place to run, and there's all this development, and now we're coming into Christmas. And I really I'm finding it hard to focus on my job because I've got this obsession with gardening, so, but the fitness side of things, sometimes the weather here, and it's getting hotter now at the moment, really hot, so you spend 4 or 5 hours digging in a garden and you get as fit as you could ever imagine. It's really quite amazing. So, but I think I'm very conscious as a manager not to get sucked into the culture. I think the hospitality industry, especially in management, can really eat people up in a way. You see them, it's always, you get invited to lunches, sportsmen's lunches, and I say no to 95% of the invites, because the thought of just sitting there in an afternoon drinking, it doesn't really tick the boxes for me. It has to be something to entice me. I think I got a great invite a few years ago to go to the Australian Open. That was beautiful. It was a great experience watching the tennis centre court. But I think just when you see the people here, just kind of, I guess, yeah, it is the industry we're in, and we're trying to drive that in, and we're trying to create, make money like every business does. But somehow you've got a fine line between not letting it get out of control. And I think because Burleigh Heads, where we are, has become so popular, it's getting harder to control that, because especially our beach bar downstairs is getting busier and busier and busier, and I'm not quite sure. I think we might just have to change our offering and change the way we do things, and maybe aim for a different demographic maybe. But it's a tough one because we are a business, and revenue is what's driving us, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, you said it's difficult sometimes to plan, or things come up like you don't know how it develops. So if there happens something you have never thought about that overwhelms you, for you planned your day and sometimes happens something, how can you handle this situation? So do you have a tool for yourself how to get back into the routine or into solving this problem?
You know, I'll be honest, it's something what I do struggle with. And, you know, I guess stress and pressure and anxiety, and it's interesting because when I talk to people think I'd be the least anxious person in the whole world, and it's amazing. People think I'm so easygoing and, you know, and nothing ever worries me. But you know, when things go wrong, it takes a few days to get over them. You wake up in the middle of the night thinking about, you know, staff problems and what's happening, you know. And even, I guess my biggest challenge is that having to make changes, because look, I'm it's only my opinion, but I feel I'm quite a decent person, and to make the changes I know I have to make for the benefit of the business, but I know they're going to affect people. And even at the moment, I know I have to make changes to staff in certain areas, and I know it's going to be really difficult for them particular staff people, and I put it off, and it's a weakness in my management. I think it's a positive thing because it shows I'm actually quite a human being, and but I have no pleasure in being in charge or being the boss, or like, look at me and I can do this. I really struggle, and I think to an extent where sometimes I think it'd be easier not being in charge, because I know I'm going to have to talk to people in certain roles, and because our place is developing and food trends change and offerings, and people, you know, that people get complacent in their roles, and you really need to change them and bring new people in. But by doing that, you really upset the people who've worked so hard for all them years. And I don't know, I think I have an ability to say it's just a job, you know, it is, and you'll always be okay. I think if you have a roof over your head and you have enough food in the fridge, that if things got really, really bad, you can just walk away and go, you know, I'll start again somewhere. And I think, you know, I've got a network of good friends and family, and even in the UK, I think because of how I've been in my life, I've got enough people, if I was ever needing assistance, I could lean on them. And I think that's probably, you get the benefit of that. But it's a very difficult industry because, you know, we had a big lunch the other day, and, you know, the chef hadn't cooked, all the steaks were cooked the wrong way, and the next minute you've got, like, you know, 80 fellas trying to complain, and it physically takes its toll on you. You wake up the next day, and it's amazing how mental strain can have. What I've learned as I've got older is what it does to me from a physical point of view. When I'm feeling positive, my energy levels are huge. I feel like I can achieve anything. But when I'm stressed or anxious, it's the total opposite. I feel weak. I feel like I can't deal with, and I feel like I can't deal with things. But I don't know. I think some people can thrive on that, but I think for me, I think in some ways, by being a bit kind, you can also get took advantage of by staff, to be honest. You know, drinking too much, not doing the right thing, and it's a fine line between how do you stay fair and try and treat everyone with respect and get them to do the same back. It doesn't always work, so you've just got to hope that you believe in what you're doing, and it will work in the end.
Yeah, true. Thank you very much. And so another question: when you got deported once, I guess you're an Australian citizen now. But imagine you would be like, or get deported again. Which country would you choose to live in? Like, where would you go?
Do you know what? I have me and my wife and the kids. We've had a fantastic time traveling through Asia, and we've been some of the remotest places in Sumatra, Sri Lanka. She's obsessed with tea, so she's got her own tea business. So we went and visited a lot of the tea making facilities. But I think I would go somewhere. I would actually go somewhere like Sri Lanka or Cambodia, because I think I like the people. I like the culture where people don't need. I think there's not much greed there. There's a lot of family share, and everyone seems to look out for each other. India's an amazing place. I mean, I guess I romanticize it a bit without living there. I feel like it might be fantastic, and maybe after a few years I might see a different side to the people. But I think also from a financial point of view, it would be, because the property is so expensive here, you could probably sell up and live like a king. I often think when I've traveled to like Indonesia and Sri Lanka, it seems like you can, for a couple of dollars, you can have a fantastic feast, and accommodations $5 or $6 a day. So I think I would probably head for Asia. I think that'd be my choice. Yeah,
cool. Now the other way around. Our podcast name is Unpopular People. So imagine you would be popular, so not being deported, being popular all over the world. You had influence. What would you do differently, or what would you do with your power or your influence?
It might sound like I'm trying to sound too nice, but I would love to help poor people. I'd love to set up an orphanage, and even we support some orphanages in India, and I'd love to actually open one with in my mum's name. My mum back home is like one of the most kind, generous people I've ever met, and I'd love to do something. I'd love to have let her tell people about her generosity and her kindness. I still have because of my singing, I still have my dreams of being like a rock star. I think if I could, obviously, I think I always look back and think, if you could do anything in life. I did love my football because I'm from Liverpool, though playing for Liverpool would have been, or being like a famous singer and living that lifestyle. But I think, I think I would have found it hard to. I do believe, I know it's easier said than done though, but if you had all that money and you were so popular and I think the only satisfaction you could get would be helping people. I'm sure, you'd want to have a good life. I'd love to have a big Tesla and drive around, and a great big swimming pool. I think I wouldn't like to think I was too good, too nice, that I wouldn't want to enjoy all the good things in life either. But I'd like to share the wealth and help people somehow, help people and people who need it, because I think in the Western world there's not really much poverty. When you go to these other countries, you see people and like, $20, $30 can really make a difference. Like, you give that to a kid in England, or it doesn't mean nothing because they've got so much. But yeah, I think I'd like to try and do something and help as many people as possible. It sounds crazy, but it sounds like, too nice. Yeah.
Doesn't sound crazy at all to me. But what I'm also wondering is, how do you set your goals? Especially now we're recording this by the end of November in 2020, and the world has changed like dramatically. How do you set your goals nowadays?
I think to myself, as I say, when I look back and I grew up, a council house. My mum still lives in the council house I was born in, and I'm in such a financial situation. Like, we have this house which, I kind of, even if I won $50 million tomorrow, I think I'd stay in the house. I love it that much. You know, it's such a, we look out onto the hills, it's close to the beach, it's just like, and I've tried to plant every possible tree, well, every tropical tree I can find, you know what I mean? So, and like, even we have an investment property in Burleigh, which I find it hard to imagine that. I'm a kid from Liverpool. I didn't think I'd have so much in life. You know, I've got cars, I've got mountain bikes. So, you know, I'm already, I think I'm ahead of where I thought I would be. You know, I'm actually, you know, I look back and I think to myself, I remember coming to Australia and my wife's parents had 2 new cars and a big house, and we were staying with them. And I think I said to the dad, I said, I could never see a time, I could never foresee a time where I had my own house and a couple of nice cars, because growing up in Liverpool, you were kind of made to always think yourself as working class, rent a house, just work, and I couldn't see a time, and what I've got now, I think to myself, it just amazes me. I've ate the best food. I love my red wine, you know, and I've drank the best red wines. I've just lived a life. I seem to have, like, I just feel so lucky. I just feel so lucky, and I think to myself, you know, I don't really want for anything, and I think that's why I keep thinking I have to start doing something for people, because, you know, it can't be fair in life that, I mean, I have worked hard, you know, and I've been a decent person most of the time when I'm not getting deported and that, you know, but I don't know. I think with my upbringing and quite a rough working class upbringing, to sit here now and to manage a place like this in an amazing spot, and to live in a house and have another house, and it just seems like, I think to myself, I mean, which is, I'm not rich by any means. It's only, you know, it's a lot of people live this way, but I just think I've got more than I ever thought I'd have at this point in my life. Yeah, so yeah, I'm on track for yeah, maybe I can even retire early, you know. So,
yeah, I think it's such a great mindset to be so thankful, and that many people can learn this from you. I think it's a great thing. Yeah, I would like to come back that you would love to do more for other people, and we wondering sometimes, or ask the question, what would you do if you would have a school full of people that you want to teach something for young children, or for people who grow up, for students, for adolescents? What would you like to teach them they can't learn in a normal school?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think to be, you know, like I say, I always look back and I think I would love to do that. I think that would give me satisfaction to try and, you know, you read these days about all the bullying and how people look at children and they judge them on how they look, and if they're slim and if they've got, you know, big lips and makeup, and I look at the kids who are sort of less fortunate, and I think to myself, how could you make every child feel special and feel happy with who they are? And I haven't got the answers, and my wife has got a better philosophy than me, because she believes, you know, you're not your body, you're just your spirit. But I think I'd try and, my children, I'm so fortunate that they look at other children, like my youngest boy, a lot of his friends are, like, say, autistic, or they're like the odd kids in a way, but he doesn't look at them like that. They're just his friends, and I think in some ways my children are much better than I was when I was young, because I did want to be a bit of the cool kid, and I was a good footballer, and I think there was children in my school who I look back now and I really wish I could have befriended them. It was such a rough school, and I remember there was I think it was a kid, a Pakistani kid, and he used to spend most of his time just getting beat up. You know, I never used to do it myself, and we had a unit there with the deaf kids, and they got like tormented and picked on, and I wasn't, as much as I, deep down inside me, I thought, I wish I could do something here. I didn't have the strength to stand out in the crowd. I just didn't have the strength in me, and I'd love to have been strong enough, and I think I could have done it. I could have said, hey guys, don't do this, you know what I mean? Like, and I look back and it's a huge regret, and I look at my children and they would have stood up, you know, so if I had a school and I had that opportunity, I would definitely want people to look at everyone as if they were special, and they were all, or no one was better than each other, you know. I think because I see kids now, and you look at the ones who don't fit in, and I guess there's, you know, maybe there's a suicidal problem with people, you know, with all the trying to be popular and things like that. And I think if somehow you could get that message across, that hey, you can be popular whoever you are. And I think it has helped with, like, say, in some ways with the computer generation, has helped in a way, because the nerds used to be picked on, but sometimes the nerds now can be the coolest kids, and you know, because they don't have to be the most sportiest, the most best looking person to be popular, which is a step in the right direction, I guess. But there's still a lot of discrimination against, you know, if a kid's overweight, if a kid's, you know, and I don't know, I wish that didn't exist, because I think there must be kids, and I was fortunate to have a lot of friends, and I'd go out at night and we'd all play and we'd have a great laugh, and there must have been children who just went home from school and sat alone. And I wish I could turn back the clock and spend time with some of them people and bring them into, you know, and being strong. But I wasn't, you know, I feel like I'm a better person now, but I just didn't have that maturity or strength to stand out in the crowd myself, because I knew it would have meant putting my neck on the line, and maybe I would have become picked on, and I think I just wasn't strong enough to do it. But I really regret, I look back now and I think, you know, I was just like a sheep going along with everyone, and I wish I could have looked back in my life and gone, geez, I stood up for what I believed in there, you know. And yeah, so. But
I have to say, like, this regret maybe that you have now, and also like the when you say like, oh, you wish you could turn back the time, I think you kind of did, because now you bring up 4 kids, or you brought up 4 kids with this mentality and with this kind of mindset. So and even if you probably didn't do it back then, but it's the past, you can't change it anymore, but you're doing it now, and you already said that your kids, they would stand up for this kid. So yeah, you're doing your part, so this is great. I have 2 more questions. So one question I think is very interesting, especially now in this time we're living. If it's a young person, or in your age or whatever, yeah, you're a young person too. But it's not what I wanted to say. If you get hold of, let's say, 20,000 Australian dollars, that just fall into your hands, like in a legal way, what would you suggest should they do with this money? Should they invest it? Should they what should they do with $20,000?
You know, it's interesting. My son, my oldest boy, he was lucky enough to buy a lot of cryptocurrency. You know, I think, you know, he bought like the Bitcoins when they were low, and I think he's got, you know, 3 or 4 Bitcoins and a few cryptos and all that. At the moment, if it was, I'm still a little bit sensible, where I would say, like, you know, if you could save up for a deposit somehow on a house, you know, or a unit or something. My wife would say the complete opposite. She'd say go and spend it and go to a festival and listen to the best music, and I'm starting to actually lean over to her way of thinking, where I think, you know, maybe you shouldn't worry about the future and live in the moment. But I think I would still say, when you're young, if you set yourself up and you said, you know, us 20,000, I don't know what it'd do for you in Australian property, but maybe in the country town, that'd be enough for a deposit. In, like, my wife from a little town called Alra, and you can pick up a house there for like $170,000. So, you know, you could get a bit more together and just get a little rental. And I think the type of, from my experience, we bought our first house in Burleigh, and I think it was $120,000, and it was just, property just seems to go insane, and everyone's made so much money on just luck, I guess. So I'd say 20 grand. I would say maybe either the cryptocurrency or a house, but maybe ask me in another year, I'd say just go to a festival and live for the moment, and you know, maybe give a small, maybe donate a little bit. You know, it's not that much money, so you're not rich with 20 grand. You probably want to do something sensible with it, but you know, if you're a younger generation, I think you wouldn't want to waste it. You'd probably invest it in some way. Yeah.
And also, like, my last question then for today is, what happened to Ian, the guy that you got the tax file number from?
Ian Lord, his name was. Yeah, I don't know. He probably might have got money from my tax return, because I think you get your tax return and it was all in his name. So he probably ended up making about 20,000 from me that year, because all the tax. Because when you're on your visa, you get your tax back. So he, even though he probably pretended he was being nice, but he probably had a double reason for letting me use his tax file number for a whole year. Yeah. I should find, if I ever find him, he probably owes me $15,000. Yeah. But it was hard going with the name though, mate. Ian Lord. It was a tough few months trying to live two different worlds, you know what I mean? Hey? So no, he was okay, I think.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we come to an end now because of time reasons. We are all busy. We thank you very much for your time today. It was so inspiring, and we learned a lot. I think the listeners learned a lot. Is there anything or a website, I don't know, where people can find out more about you?
Oh, not really. I'm on Facebook and things like that. No, I guess, you know, the Burleigh Heads Surf Club, I'm always here. I'm the manager down here. If anyone's in Australia, or, you know, it's definitely worth checking out. But now, I'd love to hear. I love talking to people. You know, I love meeting new people. I think that's the great thing about being in this industry, that you do get the opportunity to meet people like yourselves and share some experiences and just get to know what's going on in the world. But now, just call me here or email the Surf Club, manager@burleigh.slsc.com.au. Always happy to answer some questions or send you some beautiful pictures of Burleigh Heads. You know.
Yeah, thank you very much. We will add this all to the show notes, and we'll wrap this up for today. If there are any final words from your side, it's now the time for it.
No, just thank you for the time, you know, and it was lovely to open up, and, you know, I'm at that stage in my life where it's nice people to ask you a few questions. So, it's lovely to talk to you guys, and good luck with whatever you guys do in the future. Hey, good luck. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you for listening to this very interesting interview today with Nick, and we hope you enjoyed the show. You can find out more about us on www.unpopularpeople.com. You can also find the show notes on our website.
If you have any questions, shoot us a message. Same on www.unpopularpeople.com. We love to hear from you. Thank you and goodbye.